There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
We're good. All right. So that was a great song, and this now is Media Mothership. I'm your host, Dr. Craig, PhD, and welcome here to Media Mothership, broadcasting out of Edge Radio Studios in Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania. We are exploring, as always, how media can shape our understanding of the world around us. We're streaming live over edgeradio.org.au, as well as YouTube and Twitch. You can find us just by searching Media Mothership or going straight to Edge Radio. We're also, of course, on the FM system, so do enjoy that FM system. We're messaging available, so if you've got anything you'd like to say to us during the show, feel free to reach out to us. If you're in locally, you can reach out to us on SMS via 0488811707, or you can send us a message on the chat via YouTube Live or Twitch. Today's topic, we're going to be looking at three skeleton key and the midpoint of a story. The moment at which there's a kind of no return for our hero or heroes, and they've got to dig down deep to figure out how they're going to get out of this mess. So we're going to look a little bit about story writing, script writing, storytelling in terms of this kind of surprise moment that can occur in the midpoint through looking at the classic 1950 radio drama Three Skeleton Key. We'll also jump into some news and curiosities that have hit the mediascape over the last week or two. If we've got time, we'll dig a little bit into some interesting discussion around Austin Butler's voice coach explaining why he sounds like Elvis now, particularly during his Golden Globes speech. This was a nice little article on ABC News. Looking a little bit about Disney Plus and the role The Simpsons has in terms of its dominance of the Disney Plus viewing statistics, would you believe? We might also look a little bit into AI bots and other oddities. All that and more here on Media Mothership, Friday the 20th of January, just ticking past 5 o'clock. What are we? We're 5:06 now. So sit back, enjoy the next hour or so on Media Mothership, and of course, fantastic music all the way through the evening and night here on Edge Radio 99.3. All right. Well, what else is going on? So it's an interesting question in terms of looking at Three Skeleton Key. I want to jump straight into that now. Where we last left off with Three Skeleton Key, of course, the classic 1950 radio drama, we'd had this kind of inciting incident is what it's referred to as. As we know, we have a trio of lighthouse employees, lighthouse keepers, who have now found themselves besieged after a derelict ship ticking off our first cliche. I guess our first cliche was at the lighthouse point, a classic isolated location on the edge of humanity in this lighthouse, placing our main characters under severe stress. That was the kind of setup, the kind of personal antagonism that each one of them had towards each other. And then we've had well, it wasn't quite a ghost ship. It was the derelict or abandoned ship, which has crashed into the nearby rocks and ejected its passengers onto the shores. That is, an army of ravenously hungry rats have been disgorged onto the rocks right near the lighthouse. So it's a real life and death struggle now that we're going to play out as we're heading into Act 2. So the inciting incident being the swarm of rats, and now they're ensuing the 3 lighthouse keepers attempting to save themselves from this hungry horde who are swarming now towards the lighthouse. So let's pick up at this point now in 3 Skeleton Key as Vincent Price and the 2 other lighthouse keepers are desperately trying to race down and prevent the rats getting into the lighthouse.
Oh, yes, I do. Up at the other end of the rock.
Look at the millions. They smell us. Here they come. Close the door.
Can't it stop?
Here. Let me.
Oh, move, you move.
Heave.
Made it.
Holy. That was close.
One guy in. Look, there.
Get it!
Watch it. He's kicking. He was as big as a tomcat, bigger. And his eyes were wild and red, his teeth long and sharp and yellow. He went for us, starving, ravenous, and we fought him, fought that one rat all over the room. It was, oh, believe me, I do not exaggerate, it was like fighting a panther.
Got him.
We better get aloft. As we ran up the winding staircase, we passed the tiny windows of the various levels, and at every one was a thick, wriggling, screaming curtain of brown fur. I was ahead of Louis, and I dreaded each successive level. Suppose they had found a way in.
Look at them! Will you look at them?
It's a nightmare.
Will you look at them?
The air of the gallery was thick and fetid with the stink of them. The light was dim, brown, filtered through the crawling mass that swarmed over the glass all about us. We could not see the sky, nothing but them. Their red eyes, their claws, their wriggling, hairy snouts, and their teeth. The rats. They screamed and howled and threw themselves against the glass. They were starving. And we 3, we stood very quietly. Oh, very quietly in the center of the classroom under our beautiful light. And we waited.
What can we do? What can we do, Chief?
Take it easy, old man. Take it easy.
I just can't.
It won't do any good to stand here and shake.
That's right. Anybody want a cigarette?
Yes, I have one, thank you.
Good boy. We've got to keep calm about this thing. Here's a light.
They don't like the fire, do they?
Guess not.
Give me another match. You don't like that much, do you, I say?
Don't rile them, August.
Give me some more matches. I'll strike them and strike them and strike them until they get scared and go away.
They won't go away. Not until...
Finish it, Chief. Not until what?
Not until they've been fed.
Right, what a dramatic moment. Not until they've been fed. Oh dear. So we have this really wonderfully dramatic action discussion there of the fact that they've managed to stop the rats, right? So one rat did get through the door, as we heard, with that great audio sound effects of the screeching rats. Really, I guess I'd define them as. One had gotten through the... they managed to dispatch it, and then they've gone up to the top of the lighthouse, and there's some great vivid imagery there of the rats obscuring the lights now because they've covered the entire lighthouse, it seems, with their swarm. And we have at the end of this act, this moment of despair as one of the lighthouse keepers has said, that's it. We're stuck with these rats until they're fed, or they want to feed. So we're at the 13-minute mark, just under halfway through. I thought it'd be interesting to hear about what the significance of a story is at this point. So Eric Edson, quite a well-known scriptwriter and teacher on writing and doing screenplay writing, has some interesting points in a YouTube channel called The Story Solution, where he talks about the point of no return for your hero, the midpoint sequence. So I want to play this short excerpt from that to see how we're at with 3 Skeleton Key in terms of a midpoint. So this is Eric Edson with the point of no return for your hero, the midpoint sequence.
And this is called the midpoint sequence. The midpoint sequence is, to my eye and research, the most fascinating moment in the movie, because so many things are going on there. In character growth, it's the second major step of character growth. It is a plateau of change. It is called the point of no return. There is a sense up to this point, as things are compounding and the action and requirements are rising, there is still a sense, if the hero wanted to, they could give it all up and go home.
So just interrupting there for a second. Leading up to the rats getting there, conceivably, maybe the 3 lighthouse keepers, before they were trapped in that space, could have escaped somehow, probably through a boat that was coming to help them. But at this point, we're very much in this no return spot. But let's hear. Eric Edson talks a little bit here about, pre this mid moment, or going into Act 2, that the hero or protagonists can still extricate themselves from a problem. Let's hear further what Eric Edson has to say about this.
In Thelma and Louise, at the midpoint, I don't waste a lot of time on repainting it for you, but at the midpoint, if they wanted to go home and face the music, they might have to spend 15 months in jail for manslaughter, or where it might be argued as true self-defense, which is what it was, the murder. I'm sure those of you who know Thelma and Louise, if they really wanted to go back to the ordinary world and live the rest of their lives there, they could do it. But at the middle of the movie, very middle of the movie, Louise robs a store. They don't have any money. And all of a sudden, she comes running out of the grocery store with money flying and her gun in her hand, and she throws it into the car, and she's grinning. She was not the bright one. And she throws it into the car, and she's grinning. She said, "What did you do?" He says, "Well, we needed money." And they hit the gas and go into the second half of the movie. The point of no return in Thelma and Louise has now been crossed. They could have gone back, gotten 12 months, 15 months for manslaughter, aggrieved, whatever, right? And just get on with their life. You add murder to armed robbery, and you're not going back. That part of the ride is over, and it is no longer an option. See, that's just one example out of the mist, just this point of no return. There are many, there are practically infinite variations here, but that's what I mean by the point of no return.
So I want to follow this idea up of the point of no return that I think we see playing out so well here in 3 Skeleton Key now. Obviously, we're beginning already with the cliche of the lighthouse point, right? This kind of difficult to get to location and the stress of being in that space. We've had an abandoned ship that they've seen, but up until that point, the abandoned ship hasn't really made any threats or hasn't placed their lives under a do or die moment. If anything, they were more concerned about why the ship isn't trying to get out of the way of the rocks, them realizing it's been derelict or abandoned. But now, yes, we're at this point where we've had, how are our heroes under peril in 3 Skeleton Key? Well, it's because of the inciting incident of the swarm of rats that this boat has ejected upon the rocks. These ferocious rats, which have now made landfall, ensuring now a life and death struggle, it seems, between the lighthouse keepers and these rats, as they're trying to save themselves from this hungry horde who are swarming over the lighthouse. So let's listen a little bit, because we're just about to reach the literal midpoint of 3 Skeleton Key. So I'm curious to see how they, in 3 Skeleton Key, increase that sense of struggle, do they increase that sense of the midpoint, the point of no return for your hero? Similar to Thelma and Louise, is there now genuinely a sense amongst all 3 characters that they have reached a point of no going back? That is, there's no way out of this lighthouse and this situation they've found themselves in. There's no easy way out of it. They've managed to secure the lighthouse enough that rats aren't appearing to be able to get in, which is great. How is that then propelled for the next half of this radio drama? How do they then tease out this idea of the point of no return? So I want to play a little bit more of 3 Skeleton Key with that in mind. How is there a point of no return being developed at this very middle moment in 3 Skeleton Key? So let's return now to Vincent Price in the 1950 3 Skeleton Key.
You can take just so much horror and then you get used to it. And they were interesting to watch, They couldn't understand the glass. They could see us and they could rush at us, but that thin, invisible barrier held them off, stopped them. From time to time, we caught a glimpse of the rocks below. More rats down there, swarming brown velvet in the bright tropical sunlight. And then the tide began to rise. If only it had drowned some of them.
Ship's rats don't drown. No, sir, you cannot drown one of them. They're all climbing up the tower.
This bunch around us is getting thicker.
Say, what's the time?
6:15.
You've got first watch, John.
Right.
Wake me at 10.
I will.
Come along, Everest.
It was getting dark. One side of the room was lit a soft, filtered red. Sunset through the rats. Oh, very pretty. I set the wicks, checked my fuel, and then lit the lamps. It caught them, lit them in their gigantic wriggling web of pale, hairless bellies, twitching red tails, bright eyes. Then I started the rotary motor. The light drove them mad as she swung slowly and smoothly about. She blinded them in the fierce stabbing bar of light, moving continually about, ever turning, ever touching, ever moving around and around, and they twitching and shuddering, eyes flaming when they were struck by the light. The bright light moving, and behind on the dark side of the room, so close, I dared not turn my back, but you cannot help turning your back when you're in a room made of glass. On the dark side of the room, you could not see them, but only their eyes. Thousands of points of blank red light, blinking and twinkling like the stars of hell.
Well, there we go. The dramatic music escalates there. The red eyes, the stars of hell, as described by Vincent Price, as he's looking at the rats swarming in their screeching fury at the lighthouse keeper, as they're being able to see the lighthouse keeper, but unable to get through to him because of the glass. It looks like their plan is just to bunker down. Just following this idea up about the midpoint now. So returning to the ideas set up by Eric Edson, he goes on to extrapolate a little further on this idea of the midpoints and the type of kind of plan that might be occurring amongst the characters at this point to move forward. As we're halfway through the story of Three Skeleton Key, let's hear quickly what Eric Edson has to say about where the story might go next in terms of listening to the struggle our heroes are confronting with the point of no return they find themselves in, with a horde of ravenous, hungry rats trying to get through to them as they're bunkered down in their lighthouse.
Some of the same things and some new things in Stunning Surprise 2. This is the climax and the curtain dropper for the end of Act 2. And a lot goes, I mean, the bulk of your movie. I mean, Act 2 can be 70 pages, even more, of your screenplay. And that's why it deserves a lot of attention and a lot of thought and planning, and we'll get to that. It is the biggest reversal in the whole movie. This is the biggest dramatic event in your whole movie. Takes place in an instant, yes. Shocks and surprises, yes. But here, the hero's plan is destroyed. That means at the beginning of Act 2, the hero kind of picks themselves up, dusts themselves off, and now they have a very highly specific and difficult task ahead of them, a goal. So they start formulating a plan.
So I think we're kind of getting towards this point now at the start of Act 2, as Eric Edson's saying, heroes are picking themselves up. They've seen the threats of the rats. They've barricaded themselves into the lighthouse, sealed all the entrances, and they're trying to face it head on in terms of gathering what they might need to get through. We'll listen to a little bit further about how Eric Edson's setting up this beginning of Act 2 that we're hearing at the moment in Three Skeleton Keys. So let's return here to Eric Edson.
And sometimes they start gathering allies. As Campbell says, sorting out enemies and allies in that first section of Act 2. Getting their feet on the ground, forming a plan, and moving forward with it. And toward the end of Act 2, as the action is rising toward the end of the act and the climax, it just might be possible for the hero to pull this off. It's looking more and more like it's feasible. And then boom, Stunning Surprise 2 hits, and the plan is totally obliterated. The plan no longer exists.
So I'm quite curious here at the point we're at in Three Skeleton Key, where we can think our heroes are trying to now formulate the plan. They're maybe feeling they're a bit secure in their lighthouse. Can they just bunker down long enough until help comes? That is the next supply ship to the lighthouse that will be able to save them. They have stores on the lighthouse, so they're pretty well set up to just wait it out. Will that go? If this is a good story, if Three Skeleton Keys is a good story, then as Eric Edson's saying, we should be headed towards a stunning reversal too. So I guess we had our inciting incident with the rats, which was a reversal of fortunes for our characters. That we had the establishing act where there were kind of, in retrospect, petty complaints they had towards each other. They were on each other's skin, always irritating each other, frustrating each other, but they were grinning and bearing it. But then we have now a kind of worst case scenario, a nightmare situation where a boat has moored itself, has crashed itself against the rocks, unleashing its passengers of hungry, ravenous rats, swarming rats, so many rats that it's covered the lighthouse. So now, again, they're picking themselves up and trying to figure out how to go ahead. We'll listen to a little bit more of Three Skeleton Key just to see if we get any hints as to our heroes are picking themselves up at this point, halfway through at the midpoint of Three Skeleton Key. So returning here to Vincent Price and Three Skeleton Key.
Louis relieved me at 10, but I didn't get much sleep that night, and when I came up into the gallery early next morning, there stood August, his back to me. He was bowing to the rats, waving his arms and making a speech.
I am going to play once again that magnificent role which made me the toast of the Paris theatre. Prelate, the evil genius of the medieval underworld. I am he who did guide the dark soul of the Maréchal into the nether paths. Do not be frightened, little children. I will not
Kept
hurt
turning.
you.
I stood
much.
staring at him, horror-struck, but he didn't notice me. The man had gone mad. He kept turning, telling his stories to all the rats, leaving no one out. August! August!
Ah, another one. A latecomer. Take a seat on the aisle, dear patron.
August,
Move
stop
over
it,
there.
stop it.
Let the gentleman be
But
seated.
he didn't
Come,
stop.
come.
He went on, bowing and scraping to the rats, his big blue eyes rolling and winking, his wild red hair waving about him. I grabbed him by the arms and slapped his face. He looked at me like a child, and then his face screwed up. He looked as though he were about to cry. Go below, go on.
Oh, very well then. Later, my dear audience, later. Matinee today.
Sure, he was crazy, but I guess we all were. A few hours later, he came back up and caught Louis and me teasing the rats. Yes, sounds horrible. It was fun. We could get right up against the glass and make faces at them. It drove them crazy. They would scratch away trying to get at our eyes. Louis was even cuter about it. He'd pull a piece of bread out of his pocket and press it against the glass. The rats would scramble into a solid ball, biting each other, clustering like grapes. From time to time, a whole knot of them would slip and fall 110 feet to the surf below.
Look at the sharks!
They're eating them.
The sharks are our friends. Here, I'll get another bunch together. Here, my beauties. That's it. Pile up. Kill each other. There they go!
Auguste joined in, too. Oh, very ingenious Auguste. He learned that if he spread-eagled himself against the glass, they'd bunch and bundle against his figure. Then he'd leap back.
Look! My portrait in rats.
It went on all day, and then I was lying in bed. It was about midnight. I was very tired, and I was just beginning to fall off to sleep when I became conscious of a new sound. Couldn't figure it at first. I got up, lit the lamp, and went to the window. Even as I looked at it, I saw one of the panes begin to sag in. They had eaten the wood away. Louis, come quick!
What? What is it?
They found a way in. I held the glass with my hand. Now they were all going crazy, and assured of the success of this maneuver, were all nibbling away at the wood. Louis ran below and then returned with a large sheet of tin. We spread it against the window and hammered it into place. Even as we did so, we felt the heavy bodies thudding against the other side as the window gave way.
That ought to hold. If it doesn't, we're done for.
Rats can't eat tin.
No, they can't. What was that?
I don't know.
It came from below.
The storeroom window.
So there we go. The second reversal. I think we're heading now towards the end of Act 2. And the second reversal facing our heroes, which is the rats, even though our heroes felt they were bunkered down well enough, and we heard in that sequence the fact that their plan is working. Maybe our heroes are going to pull this off. Three lighthouse keepers are looking quite full of hubris. They're taunting the rats. They're waving food in front of them. They're shining lights against them to irritate them, pushing their bodies against the glass. And the idea being that, yeah, maybe our heroes are going to pull this off. All they need to do is wait it out. While there's a bit of craziness amongst them, they looks like they feel like they're going to get away with it. But reversal 2 hits just as we're now reaching Act 3. Looks like the rats, gnawing through the wood. They've cracked some of the glass while they can't get through the tin that they're quickly, hastily erecting around those broken pieces. It does sound pretty dire heading into Act 3 of the escalating drama facing 3 lighthouse men on 3 skeleton keys. So that brings us, I think, quite nicely to a sense of the danger that our characters are in. And again, returning to Eric Edson, the sense that their plan seems to have been working. Bunker down, the lighthouse is pretty secure, the rats can't get through the glass. However, it appears the bulk, the sheer number of rats that are trying to get through is sufficient to break some of the glass now. And indeed, we've just heard, it appears the rats are getting through downstairs of the lighthouse, through gnawing through the wood. Let's hear again Eric Edson saying about where we're at with 3 skeleton keys now. This is from film Courage, Stunning Surprise 2, and a screenplay by Eric Edson.
And then boom, Stunning Surprise 2 hits, and the plan is totally obliterated. The plan no longer exists. And it is called The Hero's Darkest Hour. Now it looks like the hero is finished. And let me remind this, it sounds a lot sometimes like I'm only talking about action movies. That's not the case. This, in variable degrees, is all genres, family dramas. This is what they are too. It's just that these things, these contests, these conflicts become between 2 people. One person trying to dominate another or convince them of something. All of this is true for all genres that work for audiences, okay? And it's often called The Hero's Darkest Hour. But I throw this in because I've got an example coming up, to show you a variation. About 5 or 10% of all the movies that work have a reversal to the positive. In other words, by the end of Act 2, the hero is kind of down. And then it has to be the biggest reversal. You can't go super down if you're already kind of down, and it goes up. And the big difference is when you do that, and that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of romantic comedies and dramas and other things like that. Bridesmaids is like that. Erin Brockovich is like that. But what that means is Act 3 has to be very short because the hero has already won. See? So the obligatory scene and the denouement, you get on with those and you wrap it up and you're out. Your story is over. Okay, let's take a look at an example. Not yet. This is Stunning Surprise 2 of The Matrix. Okay, this is...
So we'll pause it there. So yeah, Eric Edson goes into discussing how The Matrix is a great example of that second surprise. First surprise being recognizing you're in the Matrix. Second surprise being that scene where we're at the very end of the movie. Agent Smith has cornered Neo. Neo's trying to get back. A tank has got him a phone call to get him out of the Matrix. He's rescued Morpheus and Trinity. But, he opens that door in this final act, and standing there behind the door is Agent Smith with a gun drawn right at Neo. And we have that great shot of Neo's surprise, realizing that's it. The second reversal. He is no way out. This is point of no return. He's going to die. And again, Matrix does this fantastic move to get out of that possibility. So in 3 Skeleton Key, equally we're at this point with the, rather than a positive reversal here, we're heading into Act 3 with the negative second stunning surprise, that is the rats The first surprise being the rats that were on the boat. Second surprise being, and the rats can, it seems, get into the lighthouse and do or die. Lighthouse keepers have to do something. So yeah, the second surprise being the rats have been able to get through what the lighthouse keepers thought was a impervious lighthouse. Shocking. So next week we'll see what the third act of Three Skeleton Keys like, and how that can help us in terms of storytelling. All right, welcome back to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio, 538 here on Friday. And right now I want to quickly go over some interesting curiosities and news that have been around the world of media and pop culture. First one was this interesting piece reported on Cracked.com talking about how The Simpsons dominates Disney Plus. It's very rare to get a hold of some of the algorithms. What's interesting, of course, Disney Plus, part of this enormous umbrella where Disney has been able to consume all manner of media into its synergistic media property. It's got Marvel, it's got Star Wars, and it also has The Simpsons. For those people that know the Disney Plus streaming, they would know The Simpsons is on there as well. There's Bob's Burgers, tons of others, and Disney's own animated features and television, of course. What's interesting is Crack.com talks about how, according to data released by Parrot Analytics, interest in Disney Plus titles have been dominated by a single show. And that single show is The Simpsons. Based on a demand metric that factors in consumer research, streaming, downloads, and social media, among other engagements, Matt Groening's animated monolith blew every other Disney Plus title out of the water in December 2022. And the article goes on to talk about how the second placeholder, The Mandalorian, is a far second placeholder. That is that the gap between The Mandalorian and the sixth placeholder, Miraculous Tales of the Ladybug and Cat Noir, is closer. That is that there's an enormous gap between The Mandalorian as the second most kind of watched piece of media on Simpsons on Disney Plus and The Simpsons. The Simpsons is just above and beyond the main thing it seems people are watching on Disney Plus, which is ironic because, of course, many episodes of The Simpsons, or some episodes of The Simpsons, lampooned the control of Disney, and The Simpsons, have not been part of Disney's canon. It's not an in-house production. So it's fascinating that The Simpsons has become, the most watched show on Disney Plus. And the article goes on to talk about the entirety of 2021. This was also the case. The Simpsons was the most watched, most massive show that could be engaged with on Disney Plus. The article speculates how humiliating this might be, even though Disney Plus obviously is benefiting from this. It is rather humiliating that their own animation department, which Disney's famous for, really has had all of their properties blown out of the water in terms of, so decisively in terms of popularity, that The Simpsons is still this amazingly evergreen property which is engaged with, and even when it's located on the home of kind of, one of the biggest animation studios historically, Disney, it still defeats all of Disney's animation properties in terms of popularity. Fascinating. Just a last article here as we're heading towards the end of the show. ABC News had an interesting piece on Austin Butler's singing coach, explaining why he sounded like Elvis in his Golden Globes speech. And this is a really interesting article talking about how Butler himself doesn't think he sounds like Elvis, but so many people have been reacting to his acceptance speech and speeches and talks and interviews he'd given after filming Elvis, the Elvis film, saying how closely his accent now resembles the king of rock and roll. That drawl that appears to be hard for this actor to shake. And some critics even have said that, they've accused Butler of putting it on. That, maybe this is something he's doing to kind of, lampoon or drum up interest in his acting from having done the role of Elvis. Let's listen. Let's listen now to his acceptance speech. This is from the Golden Globes Twitter, where he accepts the award, and we'll see how his accent sounds here.
My boy. Woo! God. Oh, man. All my words are leaving me. I just am so grateful right now. I'm in this room full of my heroes. Brad, I love you. Quentin, I printed out the Pulp Fiction script when I was 12. I cannot believe I'm here right now. I just want to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press for this honor. I want to also say to my fellow nominees, you have turned in the most beautiful, profound work, and I am so honored and proud to be listed among you. I owe this to a bold, visionary filmmaker who allowed me the experience to take risks, and I always knew I would be supported. Baz Luhrmann, I love you. Thank you for believing in me in those moments that I didn't even believe in myself. I'm so grateful to you. I also want to thank my dance partner, the greatest dance partner I could have ever hoped for, Mr. Tom Hanks. Thank you.
So we'll cut it off there. But it is interesting. The Elvis film wrapped more than a year ago. And yeah, I think it's pretty clear to hear there are a lot of similarities between Butler's speaking voice here. This is him accepting his award. And, that kind of Elvis sound to his voice. In fact, the Hollywood Reporter posted on their Twitter during an interview him responding to this question of how close his voice resembles Elvis. So we'll have a quick listen here to the Hollywood Reporter and Butler's response to how close his voice still sounds to Elvis.
Yeah, I don't even think about it. I don't think I sound like him still, but I guess I must because I hear it a lot. I think, I often liken it to when somebody lives in another country for a long time. And I had 3 years where that was my only focus in life, so I'm sure that there's just pieces of my DNA that will always be linked in that way.
All right, so let's listen here to an example. It's interesting, he says that it's like living in another country. And yeah, maybe, certainly I've found if I'm speaking to someone which has a heavy accent, sometimes I'll start mimicking that. So yeah, maybe it's a similar kind of experience. But let's listen to what he sounds like before he took the role of Elvis. So this is him giving an interview for his work on the Carey Diaries. This is a quick interview with TV Fanatic just to hear how he sounds and how similar or dissimilar his voice was to Elvis pre having done that performance.
Season 2 Carey Diaries. Yeah. Last time we talked, we weren't sure if it was going to happen, but now it's happened.
Yeah, very exciting.
When did you hear about the news?
I heard about a week ago.
Okay.
And I literally heard the day that everybody else heard because I got a text about a minute after I got a call from my agent from people that, like my aunt that she heard somehow, and she's in Tennessee. And it's like, I don't know how she found out about the same time that I did. So, yeah, I'm usually the last person to know about these things.
Okay.
But it's okay.
All right. Now,
that does sound, I mean, you can hear some similarities. But let's go back to his Golden Globe acceptance speech here. So let's hear how he sounds now.
I also gotta thank Denzel Washington. Denzel, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity in championing me when you did not have to. I'm so grateful for all eternity to you.
Yeah, so yeah, there is a difference there, I think. There is a sense that maybe this Elvis role deepened, affected his performance so much so that even a year after filming, people are pointing out, you sound that Butler sounds. Hey man, you sound like Elvis still. So the article on abc.news.au, it's worth reading in its entirety. They speak with some voice experts as well as the voice coach he had. And there's some really interesting points that are raised. One is that Butler was chosen specifically because his talking voice had a similar capacity, similar range to Elvis, that they could build upon and develop a kind of authenticity with the performance of Elvis that he's given. The voice coach is interesting because it goes on to speculate a little bit further as to why this connection might have stayed for longer for Butler. And one speculation is that the article goes on to discuss that the expert they had said voices of most men weren't stable until well into their 30s. And Butler at this point is 31. So the voice expert discusses how, and this is to quote directly from the article, the muscles, ligaments, the cartilages, so the actual structure of the instrument, that's the voice instrument, which is the larynx, that's not established until they're in their early 30s for men. So like an athlete, if you overdo the voice too early, too young, or try to impose a sound that's not natural to your voice, then eventually that voice will tire out and you will have problems. The idea being here that, yeah, maybe Butler doing Elvis at this particular age has meant it's stuck a little stronger. So it'll be fascinating. The article goes on to speculate over the next few years how Butler's natural voice might return, or whether this is his voice now that this has an impact on it. It's a fascinating speculation in terms of how accents and language occur and how you can get stuck with an accent even if you don't intend to have that as your normal speaking voice. Fascinating stuff. So that's an interesting article there from ABC News on Austin Butler and Elvis. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Media Mothership. This has been Dr. Craig for another week. Show notes are available, as always, on the YouTube site. You can access this show on edgeradio.org.au, previous episodes, with other previous episodes, as well as on YouTube or Twitch. You can find out more about Media Mothership on Facebook and Instagram. Just search up Media Mothership. And if you've enjoyed listening to this pop culture deep dive, also check out Edge Radio's Millennial Think with Hannah and Miranda every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And following on directly after that is a new show on Edge Radio, Pop Topic Taz, done by the Taz Pop group, which goes into cosplay, video games, events, art, music, and tons more. So do listen to that at Wednesday, 11 a.m. So Wednesday 10 and 11, two great back-to-back shows if you haven't had your pop culture fill yet with Media Mothership. Keep listening to Edge Radio. Coming up next is Adrian. Adrian's show with You Can't Sit Down. So sit back, enjoy the final tunes. We got Scratches by Mava here on Edge Radio 99.3.